Are you ready to live without the approval that shaped you? I remember a time when my life was a perfect choreography, every step rehearsed to please an invisible audience. There was no room to be off-key, to stumble, to simply be me. Approval was the air I breathed, the compass guiding every choice, every smile. But suddenly an invisible thread snapped. It wasn't an abrupt cut, but a slow fraying, a subtle awareness that the persona I displayed no longer served me, that it suffocated me, stole my breath. This is the genesis of authenticity emerging, not as a festive liberation, but as a wound opening wide. The pain of being me, unfiltered, without layers of pleasingness, is piercing. It is the fear of existing in its purest form, the terror of being rejected for who I truly am, after a lifetime of conformity. The world suddenly seems a much larger and more dangerous place, without the guideposts and rewards of approval. Every authentic gesture is a risk, every true word, a double-edged sword. I feel the ground beneath my feet crumbling, the gravity of my own existence becoming unstable. It's as if by tearing down the wall that protected me, I exposed myself to a storm I never dared to face before. And that storm is me. Authenticity is the most painful freedom, for it demands the death of what molded us. I look into the mirror, but the image it returns is of a stranger, a distorted reflection of who I thought I was. The persona I meticulously built for decades now shatters into 1,000 pieces, a mosaic of false smiles and empty gestures. This is the essence of the grief of the persona, the pain of bidding farewell to a fabricated self, an identity that, though inauthentic, guaranteed me a place in the world, acceptance, applause. It is a kind of death, a profound loss of a part that, however false, offered me security and belonging. This grief isn't accompanied by obvious tears, but by an expanding emptiness, a fear of existing that paralyzes. Each fragment of the persona that falls is a wound opening, exposing the sensitive skin of my true self. The rupture with expectations is a double-edged sword. It liberates but also cuts the threads that connected me to a familial and social system that dictated my rules. The inner voice screams, "Who are you without what others expect?" And the ensuing silence is deafening, filled only by the echo of my own uncertainty. The body feels this disintegration, a fatigue no sleep cures, a formless anxiety that pulses, the sensation of always being on a knife's edge, about to collapse. The grief of the persona is the rebirth of the soul, but the price is disintegration. My life was governed by invisible chains, bonds of approval that tied me to a predetermined script. The rupture with expectations isn't an act of rebellion, but an internal earthquake that unravels these chains one by one. The pain of freedom is the fear of existing in a world that doesn't applaud authenticity, that punishes divergence. It's the void of disapproval confronting me, an abyss of solitude that opens when accepting gazes turn away. Authenticity isn't an easy path. It's a solitary trail, paved with the renunciation of conditional affection and the security of conformity. The intimate alienation that manifested as a distancing from myself now deepens, for I am a stranger in a world that saw me differently. The persona that once protected me is now an empty shell, a burden I refuse to carry. Yet the weight of truth is liberating, however painful. As Carl Jung warned, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And my darkness is this dread of living without the light of approval, of simply being me, in my rawest, most imperfect form. The body reacts to this deconstruction, chest tightness, shortness of breath, the feeling that the ground itself is disappearing, because the structure of an entire life is being undone. Disapproval is the currency of authenticity, and its price is the emptiness felt upon payment. There is a profound grief for annihilation, for the part of me that dissolved to fit others' expectations. The grief of the persona isn't just the farewell to a fabricated self, but the recognition of a death in life, a silent sacrifice of my own spontaneity. It's the pain of a goodbye never uttered, of a version of me that never had the chance to breathe freely. Authenticity emerges as a muffled scream, a voice that, for decades, was imprisoned by convenience, by fears, and by empty promises of acceptance. The fear of existing is my greatest opponent, the terror of having no place in the world without the disguise, without the performance that guaranteed belonging. My frozen memories are moments of fragility, where truth threatened to emerge, but was quickly pushed back down. The dark psychology of this process reveals a self held hostage by its own need for external validation, unable to see itself without the distorted reflection of others' eyes. The body reacts with diffuse pains, an invisible exhaustion no sleep cures, the weight of a soul carrying the pain of a life unlived in its fullness. The rupture with expectations is an act of courage but also of solitude. The world feels colder, more indifferent, without a mask to warm the face. But this solitude is the door to a different kind of freedom, one that doesn't depend on applause, but on my own breath. The death of the persona is the birth of the free soul, but the delivery is painful. This need to please morphed into an addiction to dissimulation, a compulsion to mold myself to others' expectations. It's not a conscious choice. It's an automatic mechanism, a perverse way to secure the false acceptance that became my only oxygen. Authenticity became a risk I couldn't take, and the fear of existing without external validation is an abyss that paralyzes me. Every yes said unwillingly, every forced smile, every piece of myself that self-annihilates, is a reinforcing dose for this addiction, ensuring the persona remains in command. The rupture with expectations isn't just an external challenge, it's an internal battle against a deeply rooted pattern. Intimate alienation deepens. The more I dissimulate, the further I drift from my true self, becoming a stranger to myself. Frozen memories are moments truth tried to emerge but was quickly pushed back, imprisoned to maintain the facade. The body feels this lie. Chronic pains, constant tension, the weight of a life unlived. The addiction to being accepted is the golden cage preventing the soul from flying. The harvest of this freedom that hurts is bitter, yet profoundly real. There are no applause as before, nor the security of constant approval. But there is a peace arising from recognition, from accepting my most authentic self. The rupture with expectations didn't bring emptiness, but a space for my own voice, however trembling, to begin to echo. It is authenticity manifesting not as a scream, but as a firm whisper. The original melody of my soul, the grief of the persona transforms into a portal. Through the pain of bidding farewell to the fabricated self, a path emerges for integration, for reunion with the child silenced by the fear of existing without approval. The dark psychology of this process reveals that the greatest prison wasn't others' expectations, but what I imposed upon myself. I became my own liberator, unraveling the invisible bonds, one by one. My body, once tense and rigid from performance, begins to relax, to breathe more deeply. The invisible exhaustion gives way to a weariness sleep actually repairs, because now energy isn't drained maintaining a facade, but sustaining truth. I look in the mirror and for the first time I see a reflection not perfect but truly mine. The freedom that hurts is the only path to peace that sustains itself. Every day, a new breath for the rebirth of the self. There's no pursuit of perfection but a gentle embrace of imperfection. Authenticity is no longer a wound, but a scar telling the story of a battle won. The grief of the persona transformed into acceptance, into an understanding that a life without masks is the only life worth living. The fear of existing without approval, once a giant, is now a shrinking shadow with each step towards my own truth. The rupture with expectations isn't the end, but the beginning of a scriptless journey, where every step is a discovery, every mistake, a lesson. The dark psychology of the fear of disapproval unravels, and the light of self-awareness begins to illuminate the soul's dark corners. I allow myself to be vulnerable, to feel pain and joy in their fullness, without the anesthesia of performance. My body, once imprisoned, now moves with a lightness I didn't know, a dance solely mine. Imperfection is the purest shine of the soul that dares to be. The freedom that hurts often comes with a courageous solitude. The circle of approval shrinks, and looks of misunderstanding may arise. But, paradoxically, it's in this solitude that I find the deepest connection. connection with my own inner truth. Authenticity becomes my new refuge, a place where validation comes not from outside, but from within. The grief of the persona transforms into a portal, making way for the true essence of my soul. The rupture with expectations is an act of self-love, a way to honor the child once silenced by the fear of existing. The dark psychology of conformity gives way to the light of individuation, to the flourishing of the authentic self. I allow myself to cry without guilt, laugh without reservation, to simply be without masks. My body, once imprisoned, now moves with an unknown lightness, a dance solely mine. The solitude of courage is the echo of the soul that finally found itself, and so my existence unfolds, no longer molded by others' approval, but guided by my soul's own melody. It's a silent testament to the liberation from the burden of living to please, from the rupture with expectations that imprisoned me. This is my new legacy, the story of a life that, though wounded, seeks reunion with its own truth. The grief of the persona transforms into a portal for understanding, revealing authenticity's beauty. The fear of existing, once a giant, is now a shrinking shadow with each step towards my truth. The dark psychology of conformity gives way to individuation's light, to the authentic self's flourishing. It's not total renunciation of care, but a redefinition of love, where my own well-being matters. I gaze at the ceiling. It reflects a sky beginning to show stars, a glimpse of peace. The end is not a magical cure, but the journey's continuation, the persistence of a heart that allows itself to feel, even if it hurts. I am my own refuge and guide, eternally connected to the truth that sets me free. Liberation is the only inheritance worth leaving to yourself, a legacy of authenticity. If you feel approval shaped you and seek the freedom to be yourself, write in the comments, "I choose my painful freedom." And if this truth touched you, follow the channel for more conversations no one dares to have.